guys, Dave here with another video. Welcome back. If you're a subscriber, thank you for supporting the channel. If you're not and you find this video useful or entertaining by the end, I hope you'll consider subscribing. I do come back with videos at least once a week on investing and just trying to make more money together, basically, in the crazy stock market. Today I'm talking about Astra. I am always been interested in space stocks. Lately I've been more focused on Rocket Lab. That's still a big one that I'm interested in, that I'm a shareholder of, and that I will continue to follow closely. But at the same time, if you're following a company like that, you really want to know what the competitors are up to, and if they're also worth investing in. I follow space stocks not only because I think rockets are super cool and fun, but also because I think there's opportunity there as well. And I think it's a bit of an advantage if you're already interested in the area that the company you are investing in operates. Example, like, say you work in IT and you invest in tech companies, maybe you have a bit of advantage there because you understand these companies at a bit of a deeper level, what they're doing. I don't claim to be a rocketry expert, but I do enjoy following all these companies quite a lot just for my own enjoyment. So therefore, I tend to know a lot more about the industry than if I was just going into it purely from an investor point of view. That being said, some bad news for Astra recently. If you didn't hear, they lost a rocket that they were launching for two small sats for NASA was the payload. Tropics mission, I believe it was called. Very close to achieving the correct orbit, actually. It's not like this one failed on the pad or anything like that. They're extremely close to the mission being a success, but unfortunately, being close doesn't really get you anything in terms of this payload. So it is a failure. And we're just trying to look at the impact to the stock, how this affects things, if this is changing how we think about Astra going forward. Is the company in danger of going out of business? A lot of people have been asking that recently. Even non-investors have been saying, is Astra okay? Are they going to go out of business? They've had a bunch of failures now. Not just this one. It's been a long road. Doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. We all know SpaceX had many failures on the road to success, and it's all part of their process and their learning opportunity. Astra's kind of a similar philosophy there as opposed to the old school guys like Boeing. So not completely shocking that they would have failures, but there's no way to say this is good news. It's definitely not good news, especially losing payloads at NASA. I think this is the second time they've lost a NASA payload. These are very important contracts for them. So let's hop over and discuss what happened and what we think about the stock now. So first off now, I just wanted to show anyone who hasn't seen it just a quick condensed view of what happened with this launch. I always find it interesting and entertaining to watch, and you can see they really did make it far in the process. Again, they didn't just blow up on the pad here. They were really almost there, and it's always just fun to watch. So let's give it a quick watch together. Pretty flawless liftoff there. Pretty cool views.
Now looking at an onboard view, looking up, there you see payload fairing separation. This is a camera on the upper stage.
Quality is not always great from space.
And there's stage separation. And
stage separation, upper stage always cool ignition. To see. Cheering.
You can keep an eye on that altitude. You can see the rocket already over 510 kilometers in altitude. Again, the target orbit for today is at 550 kilometers.
So they only need about 40 more kilometers of altitude here in order to make it. You can see also that
velocity continuing to climb towards orbital velocity, of course, which is good. 7 minutes in the flight. Just a little over a minute left in the planned upper stage burn.
1 minute left to go in their burn. And there you can see the failure. Rocket engine definitely shut down too early, and now we're kind of spinning out of control here. Views are a little haphazard, but we can see the Earth coming into view and spinning around. Rocket's definitely not under control, definitely not normal behavior. And now we caught up. So extremely unfortunate to see that launch fail so close to the proper orbit. I know everyone at Astra who works extremely hard on these launches is going to be very upset. And of course, the customer won't be happy either, which in this case is NASA. And it's not really a customer you want to have unhappy with you, obviously. However, they did build some redundancy into this launch, and they knew going in that it was a highly risky contract. NASA actually likes to support these new upcoming companies so that we can have a more competitive, more diverse marketplace and more potential companies to carry their payloads. But with that comes the risk of giving contracts to brand new companies, a higher risk of failure. And they knew that going in, of course. They also are able to successfully still use this constellation because it's a small constellation of small sats as long as the remaining launches are successful. So I'm sure everyone's hoping that the next couple launches are a success for the for Rocket Lab and for NASA. So, what does this mean now for the stock of Astra? Well, you can see what happened, and it wasn't pretty. Stock's already been beaten down a lot over the past couple years, but around the 12th is when the launch happened. We had a big drop. Now we're all the way down to, say, $1.50, maybe $1.6. Stock has really been devastated over the past couple of years. It's tough to see. And that's not only Astra's fault. A lot of small upcoming companies that are not yet profitable, especially a lot of space companies, have been going through similar things. So you can't blame Astra for all of this for sure. But it's a tough scenario for the stock, for the company, and for the shareholders. We zoom out a little further here. Take a look at the stock price over a 1 year graph. We can see we used to be at about $15 a share about a year ago, and now we're down to $1.63 a share. So that is completely destroyed the stock price. The value of the company has been given on the open markets. Just to kind of put this into perspective for you guys, there was a lot of hype around Astra back a year ago, but I wasn't an investor back then, I guess, luckily. Although I still do hope they succeed, obviously. That being said, if you invested $10,000 while it was at those $15 per share highs, that money would now be worth about $1,000 today. So 1/10 of the initial value pretty much is painful for any shareholder out there. And that's kind of what you have to know you're risking in these speculative stocks, although obviously the only way for it to go down another 10 times would be basically for it to go out of business at this point. So company a little bit de-risked in that regard, I suppose, but when you invest in these speculative growth companies that are not yet profitable, they're burning cash, they're small companies, you have to know that this is a risk, and a lot of this is from the current market environment, the rising interest rates, and obviously having failures on their rockets is not helping at all. So these are the thoughts I kind of had when I was thinking about the stock and looking into it briefly recently. By the way, I'm not claiming to be a complete expert on this stock. I'm researching it probably along with you guys. If you're watching this video, you're also interested in it. I'm trying to learn more. And I welcome your comments down below. If you have any other thoughts that I haven't mentioned, please do mention them down in the comments. I very regularly actually learn things from commenters, and it's great to have that back and forth. But anyway, so the big question on a lot of people's minds, and I was watching space-related content on YouTube, completely unrelated to investing. They just like to talk about rocketry and rockets. And they were saying, "Oh, is Astra going to go out of business now? How many launches can they have fail? How many more launches can they have fail before they're completely out of business?" Nobody really has the answer to that, but I don't think they're going to go out of business personally. They have had successful launches. That's an important point to make sure you're aware of. There are some companies that have been close to going out of business and have never had a successful launch. It's a big difference. When SpaceX almost went bankrupt, they had never had an successful launch at that point, whereas Astra has. Although these failures are definitely concerning, we really do need to see them being able to launch successfully on a consistent basis. Customers aren't going to want to keep signing up if there's a decent chance their payloads will be lost. And of course, it's not good for Astra either. Another thought I had is that if you want to issue more stock and raise more money, if you need to raise more capital because you're burning money, extremely painful to do at these valuations. So basically, if you're going to issue more stock on the open market, your shareholders won't be too happy. They're going to be diluted to an insane amount depending on when they bought. If they bought at 15, the dilution factor is extremely painful for them and extremely painful for the company. You don't really want to be raising from a position of weakness like this in the stock. You really want to raise from a position of strength. So tough to do that here, which begs the question, how much money do they have on the balance sheet? How fast are they burning it? Are they about to go out of business? Well, did a quick look, and as of the previous quarter's results, they had $275 million in assets on the balance sheet. Not a huge amount, and if you know they've gained access to more capital, let me know. This is just what I saw from the previous quarter. So it's a little bit concerning. And if they do need to raise more, obviously you don't want to see that massive dilution. There is potential to gain in the form of debt, where you borrow money instead of issuing more shares, but then you have to pay interest on that, which can also be painful. And we know interest rates are going up as well. And they're also probably not, investment grade AAA type. So they'd have to pay higher interest on that debt as well. Also took a quick look at the balance sheet on that same quarterly results, and we have total liabilities at $71 million. So they already have a bunch of debt, $71 million in debt, $275 million in assets. Most of that's cash, although there is some other items on there. Goodwill I always think of as kind of nonsense, but we're looking at about $200 million left in the bank for this company. How many launches can we have fail before you have no money and you can't pay your staff? It's a tough question. I still think they could probably launch, 4 or 5 more times, and if those all failed, maybe they would go bankrupt, but I don't see it happening personally. They've already had successes. This failure was so close to the end goal. I mean, every time they fail, they're failing closer to the finish line, so to speak, right? When they started off, they were failing blowing up on the pad, then they kind of went horizontal and didn't go vertical. Then they went vertical, but then you have separation issues, and they keep getting closer and closer. So at least you see they're making progress. But we're starting to get to crunch time for this company, and the risk really does show in the stock price right now. A few more thoughts here. Launch cadence by them is still extremely impressive. I'm not going to say it isn't. They've been launching very frequently for a small startup. They seem to have manufacturing down pretty well, and the cadence is impressive. Obviously, the more you launch, the more money you can make from launches, so that's good, but we just need these launches to be successful, and we need to make money off them. Another thought I was having is, where's the reusability kind of in the modern space launch industry? in order to be successful, it almost seems like reusability is a prerequisite at this point. It just makes it so much cheaper to be able to reuse your launch vehicle. You can improve your margins. You can launch more frequently because you don't have to make a new one every single time. I'm not seeing that yet from Astra. I don't know if they've unveiled any plans that I missed, but as far as I can tell, very focused on efficient and cheap manufacturing, but we haven't seen any reusability, and I think that is extremely important to be a successful company. So I'd love to see some plans in that regard, which Rocket Lab does have, and they don't. One of the reasons I'm an investor in Rocket Lab, not yet in Astra, nothing against Astra, of course. Everyone has to make their own decision on which companies they like better, but I would love to see reusability before I considered investing in them. They have an extremely ambitious goal to be able to launch a rocket a day. So 365 launches a year. I mean, nobody's talking about doing that, certainly not Rocket Lab. So if they could do that, that would be extremely impressive. Definitely a lot of bold, grand visions with this company. I still do find the CEO pretty impressive. Did an interview with YouTuber Pilot a while back. He seemed to think their CEO was good as well, so that's good to see people more immersed in the industry also like him. And then how does their new rocket 4.0, kind of figure into all this, right? So this rocket 3.0 is failing right now, and they're already working on rocket 4.0. I have to imagine if 3.0 can't be figured out and gotten down reliably, there'll be some reluctance for customers to sign up for 4.0. There'll be some difficulties raising cash to develop this rocket. And even though they are moving on to a new rocket, 4.0, I do think it's extremely important to show and prove that they can master this with rocket 3.0. So, how does 4.0 figure into this? I'm still not too sure. They're, I think, very early in the process of getting 4.0 going, so 3.0 is still really important. And those are just some thoughts from Astra. Let's head back and wrap up this discussion, guys. Just to wrap up, extremely unfortunate to see the payload fail. Nobody wants to see that. Not NASA, not Astra, not even competitors, I don't think, really want to see it fail. We all want the space industry to grow and be successful. So nothing but the best to Astra. I really hope they can get these next launches down. I don't think they're going to go out of business, but anytime you're asking that question is probably never a good thing. In terms of would I invest in them at this point, I still think I'd rather put that money into Rocket Lab. I think I've got a bit more confidence in Rocket Lab's approach, the reusability. Love Peter Beck, of course. Excited to see what they're going to do with the Neutron and how close they are to bringing Electron to reusability. As well as there's space systems and other lines of business for Rocket Lab. Not seeing so much of that with Astra either. So right now I'm sticking with Rocket Lab. I do want to follow Astra closely as well, though. If the story changes, of course, I would consider investing. At these levels, of course, you may think they're extremely cheap, but it is difficult right now with the stock price beaten down. The fact that the stock price is low is a risk of its own because they'll have so much trouble raising money, and dilution can be so expensive. So those are kind of my thoughts. Not the end of the world for Astra. I think they can recover. I think there's a good chance they will recover. We've seen the litany of SpaceX rocket explosions in the past, and obviously they're doing phenomenally these days, so it's not impossible. It's not out of the question. They really need to execute on their next few launches, and they have the capability and the cadence to make new launches quite quickly as soon as they figure out what caused this previous issue. Let me know what you think, guys. Are you an investor in Astra? Do you also invest in Rocket Lab, or do you prefer Astra to Rocket Lab? Are you interested in any of these other new launchers, any other space companies? What do you think about this whole situation with Astra? I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time. See ya.